In this replay, we're going to be looking at Weehaw absolutely dismantle this game, and his score actually doesn't end up too well, but based on his playstyle, he's able to create a ton of space on the map without getting tons of kills and actually beat or do well against the Timbersaw in lane. Yes, Timbersaw. Tiny is not a hero that's naturally supposed to be Timber, considering Tiny is a strength melee hero. That is the definition of a hero that's trash against Timber, but let's break it down.
The mid lane role is for star players, which is why at GameLeap.com we designed an in-depth course teaching you every trick and concepts pro players abuse to crush the middle lane. There's no better role than mid to solo carry your ranked games, so hit the discount link in the description below to unlock your unfair advantage with GameLeap.
So going into the laning stage, this is very important. First off, he has a Boots and a Mango as his starting items, and goes for the Tree Throw at level 1. Now why Tree Throw at level 1 and why Boots? The Tree Throw is very important, especially against ranged heroes as well, because it allows you to secure the early CS, gives you a bit of damage, but more importantly, it gives you crucial range that allows you to stay out of range of auto attacks and, prevent him from getting hit by things like the Timber Q, which he does in this lane. It's not perfect, but the range is what's important. You're going to take much less creep damage and be able to just maneuver in and out of the lane. Now, the first thing I want to say is Tiny in the laning stage plays very much around his toss, right? If you can toss your opponent under the tower and make them tank the tower, that is what's strong about this hero mid, period. That is what you want to look to do. So the first thing you're going to notice, the lane is under his tower and pushing into him. Now that's a large result of the Timber casting his Q. In some lanes, the lane might just push into your opponent, which is not optimal, but you notice here, the first clip, the Timbersaw is trading with the Tiny, right? And you can notice that Weehaw is paying a lot of attention to his creep wave that's coming in, right? And this is what you need to look for. If any opponent comes even relatively close to your high ground, when the creep wave is approaching into your tower, you're going to toss them under, right? Just like that. And if you have Avalanche, you can approach with Avalanche. He doesn't in this case. And what you notice now, with the Boots, it allowed him to get in the toss range quicker. And second thing, because toss is a low cooldown, it allows him to get a second toss off and actually pick up the first blood, right? That's absolutely massive and is what allows him to do, at least decent in this extremely hard lane. In terms of a first item, he's going to pick up a very early bottle, and this is good against Timber in particular because Timber reduces your HP pool, basically making regen faster. It's similar to dropping stats before you click the shrine. So, it makes a lot of sense in this particular matchup, but it's generally good in other matchups as well. And the last thing I want to say about these Boots is, I know I'm referring to Timber a lot, but I think this just goes to show how much he actually considered his matchup. Timber is a hero that naturally walks down the strength heroes, and what I mean by that is he uses his Q and runs at you to get the kills, right? He just follows you. And the Boots prevents that, right? So until Timber gets Boots, you're going to be able to run away. That's what's important. Now the next flashy play we're going to see from Weehaw here is he actually sends his Illusion Rune to the tower and then tanks the creep wave so that the tower actually prioritizes damage on the Timbersaw. Now it's very important if you get anyone ever under the tower and you have your Avalanche that you cast it so that they, continue to tank the tower and stay in range. And yeah, this is kind of like the general basis behind Timber in the laning stage. You want to be constantly looking for opportunities to toss people under tower while still managing very high CS, right? Because you need, especially if you're going to go for this, Boots start, you need a lot of last hits to get that early bottle or, at least a kill, because it does not provide you proper sustain, right? He didn't buy a salve, which is very common. He didn't buy a stout shield, a quelling, none of these items. Now, moving on to the next major play of Weehaw's game, he manages to find this haste rune top, and you notice it's very important when he gets this haste rune that he actually goes and checks the top lane. You notice that quick camera movement, and what that allows him to do is see that this Venom is low. If you get a haste rune, you should be looking for ganks. It's one of the only times I actually think you should gank side lanes. Other runes just don't allow you to get back to mid fast enough, right? You don't want to miss too many creeps. But due to the fact that he checked that the Venom was low, and he knows it's a very easy kill, due to the fact that the Venom can't slow him anymore, he's able to run, quickly pop the Venom, and immediately go back to mid, right? No hesitation. You immediately run back mid. And quick ganks like that, I think, are efficient, right? It actually gives him 370 gold, which is a ton. And he's not going to miss too many creeps mid, which is the bigger part. And what I want to say just quickly in the laning stage is it's very important that as Tiny, even though you're a super good ganking hero, that you don't just run back and forth from side lane to side lane in the early game, right? It's something we'll talk about later on that's quite effective to, bounce between lanes. But in the early game, don't overexert yourself. simply get the last hits. If you happen to get a haste rune, or maybe you want to secure a bounty rune because you have an empty bottle, then maybe consider a rotation. But don't just continue to run from side lane to side lane. You're going to fall behind and lose your ability to solo kill opponents. So upcoming here, Weehaw actually rushes a Blink Dagger, which is bizarre. This is something you could test out for yourself. I've tested it out. It feels alright. It definitely depends if you can kill your opponents. But looking at this fight, what I want to say is he casts his Avalanche Toss on the Timber, right? Does about half the Timber's HP. And then the first thing he will do is actually, start disengaging a bit, right? He doesn't instantly commit on this Timber. Gives him a hit here, but once he sees that the supports rotate in, instantly starting to back out until his Avalanche is up. Avalanche comes back up, he returns into the fight and manages to pick up another kill. Not only that, the Blink Dagger allows him to get this AA as well. And right, this is super, super important to consider that your spells are low cooldown. 14 seconds on Avalanche, 11 seconds on Toss. So in the fights, you want to bounce in between. Now, showing off here, this is around the first time you're going to start really want to play side lanes once you pick up this early Blink Dagger. Because if you don't play side lanes, going mid often will present you with the hero that you can't necessarily kill. You might have dominated mid, in which case, you could continue picking on the mid laner that you had beat. However, a lot of the times level 4, 5, even, maybe level 3 side laners are, the easy kills for you. You can easily kill them, and not only that, you're going to be right next to a creep wave, which will allow you to continue farming, as you see here. And you notice right after he ganks top, this is kind of the general movement you want to have. After the gank top, immediately back to mid, sort of, bouncing around his pressure, right? Moving around is pretty important on these mobile heroes to continue creating pressure on different parts of the map. Not only that, him going mid here is, relatively important because if he ignores this Timber, the Timber will use his very high level advantage compared to the Enigma in order to pressure down the mid tower. In terms of casting spells on Tiny, I just want to make a quick side note for anyone who's very uncomfortable on Tiny. It's very important to understand that Toss makes Avalanche do 3 times the damage, right? So when considering this, it basically means that when you cast your Avalanche on someone, you also want to cast your Toss. So you notice he casts Avalanche, then goes for the Toss, and this really amps your damage. If you cast them separately, you're going to notice that your hero often will lack the ability to kill any hero, so this is a massive deal on Tiny. Not only that, after his Blink Dagger, he picked up a Wand, and Wand is just such a good item. For a hero that, has mana issues like Tiny, it's incredible, and not only that, Wand is just the best item in Dota. It's my favorite item. I don't know. How could you not buy this item? It saves him here, allows him to not feed a lot of gold to the Earth Spirit, and heals him up to full mana. If that mattered. And after his final shrine here, to get some HP back, he's now once again bouncing to his side lane. So very clean movement. You notice he kills the Earth Spirit top, then he goes for the Timbersaw mid, then the Veno bottom. Right, and this is kind of a nice way of really threatening the side lanes and making people very uncomfortable. They don't know where he's going to be next, right? He could all of a sudden show up to another lane, and he constantly has TP up, which is important, right? If he did want to TP top or help his teammates up there, because he's walking from lane to lane and not TPing, he has the option to, make a play on the opposite side of the map at any time. So upcoming here, Weehaw actually dies twice in a row. Like, literally just straight up dies twice in a row. No kill, no response, just 2 deaths in a row. That's it. And he starts to fall behind, and in fact, his opponents are starting to get to the point where they're not going to really die to him. In fact, he goes for bots, which does not help you deal extra damage to your opponents. So what in the world does he do to help himself scale this game, especially with bots? And that is shove and cut creep waves. The important one there is cut the creep waves. You notice this Timbersaw is right next to him here. He could go on him, but he knows that this Timbersaw is a very hard kill, and Timbersaw's objective is to shove the lane and start creating pressure on maybe the bottom tier 2 tower. But he's not going to let that happen. Even though a fight breaks out, what ends up happening is he goes behind the tower and cuts the next wave. After he cuts that wave, where's the next natural rotation? You might not want to stay bottom because the enemy might rotate there, right? They're going to head over there. They're like, oh, this guy's cutting our waves bottom. Let's go bottom. So what does he do instead? He actually gets this fantastic deep ward up and cuts another wave mid. After that, what does he do next? What does he do next? He considers going mid. He's like, I could go mid. But he's already relieved the mid pressure, right? If we look at this tower, it would have gone down if he didn't cut that mid wave. 100%. Would have died. It would have died. No doubt. In fact, it was a cart wave, if I'm not mistaken. Right? Oh yeah, there's the cart. So it was a cart wave. And now the enemy team makes a great play to glyph the cart, right? They understand the importance of taking this mid tier 1 tower, so they get it anyway. But you notice Weehaw is still in position to relieve pressure and keep his farm up, right? This is simply also just one of the better ways to keep your farm up. Blinks in the trees, TP's out, and with his Boots of Travel and Bottle build, he's able to, once again do this right away. Instantly TP's bottom, right? Gets the Air Spirit to go mid, and now he's bottom. So this is a really good way to split up the enemy team, right? It can make them very uncomfortable. People who don't know how to deal with this split pressure, it will just straight up make them uncomfortable. And a great side effect of them splitting up is this Void shows in the side lane, and he's in position to kill him, right? So really crisp movement of Weehaw, spreading out the enemy team. And the second thing that is so important about this is, who does this open up the game for? What does this play do? Not only does it give Weehaw a lot of, farm, not only does it defend the towers to a certain extent, but it creates immense amount of space for the PL because he's fighting away from the PL. He's dragging pressure away from PL. PL has been farming top, so if he cuts top wave, he's taking farm away from PL, period. So, in consideration of that, he has cut bottom wave and mid wave, which does not affect the PL's farm. And really, honestly, I could love to show you guys, and would even consider showing a tiny game where he just goes 21-0, is going everywhere, just solo killing everyone. But that's not how he wins this game. In fact, it wasn't clean at all. He definitely wasn't, the hard carry star of this game that would get the MVP vote from, the typical player. But if you really break down his impact of this game, it comes down to creating space untraditionally. And that's something that is something everyone can learn, but it's very complex to the average player. And really coming to this point, all he is going to do is just cut more waves until, potentially a fight breaks out. So he picks up a rune, gets a D-ward, TP's top because his PL is farming bottom, finds this really good fight, which is, a matter of the enemy team getting split up. The Timbersaw TP's in late, and as a result, they're able to take a good fight. So, this wasn't totally a result of him pushing in a lane, it was also the enemy team making a big mistake, but still, the benefit of bots, benefit of having TP, allows him to make this play. But really, not too much fighting. So he, gets a good fight, makes plays with his team, but in general, right after the fight breaks down, he doesn't push in top. He lets the PL push in top. Similar to earlier on, it's a big pattern here. He is shoving away from the PL, right? Pushes in mid, where does he go next? Bottom, right guys? It's really about playing away from your carry and not taking their farm, but taking the dangerous farm. And sometimes you could even consider, what he's taking is the safe farm in a lot of games, like considering the dead lane concept that we all have come to know and love. But the main idea is that you're going away from your carry. Alright, right here is my favorite play of the game. This is absolutely fantastic. I just love seeing this because often I hear a large complaint of when I tell people that they should split push when the enemy team is going high ground, they say, well, I have to defend, I need to help my team. He respawns, and this is in slow motion, and he's instantly TP's bottom. His team is still taking a fight and literally still takes a fight 7k behind, and you notice they win it. Why? Because, they'd already been getting chipped down. It was just, kind of a over-commitment from the enemy team. But he literally insta-goes bottom to create pressure and keep his farm up. Right now he's close to an Ags, goes mid, sort of misses the wave. Was a bit late there, but still, hopefully you see the point. You don't have to insta-defend high ground all the time. In fact, a better defensive high ground is often moving away from it and cutting deeper waves. Now, talking about item build briefly, and even talent build, I don't know if this was a misclick, but I find this slightly bizarre. He actually took the 400 health at level 15. I don't fully understand this. In fact, I think the avalanche damage is great considering you can 3x it with toss. So, if you feel like you're really snowballing the game and want to continue solo killing people, I think the avalanche damage is great. But this game, he's playing a lot more around split push and maybe thinks there'll be some close calls, so he takes 400 health. At level 10, you do want to take 30 damage, and the idea behind this is that you're going to be cleaving and cutting waves at some point, and not only that, when you get your Ags, you're going to be tossing trees, which is based upon your damage, right? So it is very important to just have more damage. And here's the last clip of split pushing that I'm going to show. He goes top here, his team's sort of midish, and the enemy team's like, oh, he's been split pushing all game. We've seen this Tiny do this over and over again. Let's catch him this time. And that's what they try to do, right? They make a, pretty decent attempt on him, but then they overextend, they get over anxious, and then he uses his tree volley and absolutely shreds this Earth Spirit. Yep, so basically he forces a good fight due to conditioning that he has done throughout the entire game, right? The enemy team is going out of their minds. All their waves are constantly pushed in. Now, briefly, I want to give a breakdown of Tree Volley, and what Tree Volley is Tiny's new Ag. So if you're not familiar with the ability, if you're standing next to trees, you toss them in an area, and it does AoE damage, right? So in this case, he walks over to the trees, right, so he can throw them, and chucks them at this AA. And even though the AA is in Glimmer Cape and invisible, they still chunk them down. So yes, it hits invis units, it's one of the best ags in the game, and does fantastic amounts of damage. And do understand that this tree volley is actually predicated around your right click damage, right? In fact, it gives you 20 bonus damage, and that is why you want to buy Daedalus after it, because the tree volleys can actually crit. In fact, they deal the damage that you do, so it makes a lot of sense to go right click items after your ags pick up. And at this point of the game, he can make plays and all and toss some trees, but the real star of the show at this point is the PL, who he has created immense pressure for. So if you have these hard carries and you're a tiny, you don't necessarily have to go, the AC, Satanic, or like Ags, Daedalus, multiple Daedalus build. You can go this bots BKB, sort of like utility-ish type of build, and you'll see him feed here, but at this point, it's not his game to win. It's the PL's game to win. He's done his job. And I know, I can hear you all being like, oh, but my carry will never carry me. And yeah, I mean, I get that. Like, carry players are definitely the worst. That's for sure. I'm kidding. But like, his job is done. He's created space for the PL. And that's really what I wanted to get through to you guys. You can come back, and let's say this was a bad game. In fact, I want to give you a quick story. I just was playing this tiny build. I was inspired by Weehaw to play some tiny. And we had an atrocious game. Our Phantom Assassin, who accidentally randomed the hero because she disconnected, went offlane. I had an Anti-Mage and a Phantom Assassin dual core. Yes, you heard that right. And how did we win the game, even though we were getting absolutely stomped because we couldn't take a single fight and I'm a tiny? Right? It didn't feel so good. I cut waves, right? I learned from this game, I cut waves, and we dragged it out. Even though I was feeding, I was playing, even my split pushing I didn't think was great. But we were creating space, I was not taking too much farm from my carries, I was trying to play away from them. And what ended up happening was our AM went 11-0, the guy had complete free farm, a ton of space, and did whatever he wanted throughout the entire game. And I think that goes to show that, even if you don't trust your carry, you gotta have some faith or else you're just going to lose with these type of heroes. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys learned quite a bit about Tiny. I really have been having a ton of fun of playing this hero lately and would give him a shot if you're any sort of mid laner that likes to blow people up. Thanks for watching.
Tired of being held back by your team? At GameLeap.com, we have pro guides covering some of the best heroes in the game to solo carry your ranked games, as well as a course specifically covering the mid lane role. Click on this link right now to take advantage of our special offer for a 25% discount and start your journey today.